What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast, Mass Media Hysteria. My name is Court. I will be your host for the duration. With me, as always, is Chris.
How's it going, everyone?
And today we are going to be talking about a number of topics. We're going to sort of briefly talk about last week's Oscar telecast. It was a little weird, so we have some thoughts on that. We're not going to go deep on it, but we're going to discuss that a little bit. We are also going to talk about, we got 3 new trailers. One is really more of a teaser for the new Chris Pratt, Amazon sci-fi, The Tomorrow War. We're going to talk about the new Pixar movie called Luca. And of course, during the Oscars, we got our first look at Steven Spielberg's remake of West Side Story. So we will talk about those. And then we're going to spend the remainder of the show going full spoiler review of the new Netflix film, The Mitchells versus the Machines. Chris, I know you enjoyed it. I'm going to say right now, I absolutely loved the movie. So I think we'll have a lot to say about that.
For sure.
As per always, before we get to, I should also say Andris is not here this week. This is his bye week, but hopefully we'll see him next week. And as always, we're really glad that you're watching. We hope you'll click the like button. It really helps the podcast grow and get out there. Click subscribe, comment your thoughts below, all that. I do read all the comments. I try and respond to as many of them as I possibly can, so don't think they're going unread. We would appreciate if you guys would do that. But without further ado, let's jump into our first topic, the Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
So this was always going to be a bit of a weird year for the Oscars because 2020 was such a weird year for movies and movie going in general. We had talked on the podcast about this in the past, that a lot of people were saying this was going to be kind of an asterisk year. We both kind of disagreed with that, just sort of based on the types of films that were nominated were all very Oscar-y movies anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Full disclosure, I did not see all of the Oscars. I was on a walk. I watched a little bit on my phone and I missed a chunk of it, listened to some in the shower. It did get weird. Maybe it is kind of an asterisk year. I don't know. Maybe we'll revisit that thought at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But so how do you want to do this? Do you want to go through the categories first? And do you want to talk about what many are calling the upsets? And then maybe we'll talk about the format last?
That works for me. Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, just to basically go off the top of the big winners, and obviously there's, a ton of categories, but what ordinarily, we're going to do it in the order that is ordinarily the highest importance. And we'll touch on that. You'll know what I mean, Court. So best picture of the year, this was a no surprise for either of us, was Nomadland. I think going into the Oscars, this was the foregone conclusion. This was the clear front runner. Solid win. I think that both of us can agree that Nomadland wasn't either of our necessarily favorite movies of last year, but it's one of those that I think is deserving. Like, I don't think it's not a Green Book kind of situation where I'm like, really, that one? It was
still love that movie, but whatever.
And Green Book is a fun movie. It's just didn't peg it as a best picture of that year. But yeah, Nomadland's really, really solid movie, and it's a mixture of like touching on themes that are very Oscar baity, like poverty, and it's very melancholic, but also it's far less formulaic than I think a lot of Oscar bait movies are.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, it feels very much like a Terrence Malick film where it's kind of a stream of consciousness. So any thoughts? Do you think that's a deserving win for Nomadland?
Yeah, and also to the point of just it being kind of a little bit different from a standard Oscar movie is the majority of the cast were not actors. You had David Strathairn in there, and you had of course I'm blanking on her name right now.
Frances McDormand.
Thank you. I was going to say Francis Ford Coppola.
For best
but
actress.
like aside from a couple of Hollywood actors, like most of the people in the film were just real nomads, and a couple of them. Yeah. That Swanky character in particular gave a hell of a performance. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say Nomadland was not my favorite movie of the year. Even out of the movies that were nominated for Best Picture, I actually like The Father more as a film than I like Nomadland. And I really like Nomadland, don't get me wrong, but to me, yeah, no surprise that it won. I think it's absolutely deserving. And obviously we'll talk about Chloe Zhao again in a little bit, but I am so very curious to see how she goes from this incredibly quiet, um, introspective movie to her next thing is a Marvel film. And
Yeah.
what could be one of the bigger Marvel films, just in terms of scope. I mean, it's got a
Yeah.
huge cast. It takes place over the course of thousands of years.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling to me, but I'm fascinated to see what she's going to do with that.
Oh, same here. The Eternals, when it was first announced a couple years back, was sort of like, okay, it's like it's a Marvel thing. I trust them. They haven't really the MCU hasn't really produced a movie or even a show that I really disliked. And I'm
Right.
not saying that I love all of them. I'm not like an ultra fanboy, but they're the Marvel movies range from good to sometimes great. And but my interest has now just like gone through the roof after seeing Nomadland, and the fact that it won and Chloe Zhao is directing it. It's like the Eternals went to like, oh, I'm interested in seeing it, to like, this is probably my most anticipated MCU movie going forward.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with Marvel's track record. The only one that I like, I'm not a huge fan of Iron Man 2. We discussed that we all kind of liked Iron Man 3 better. And I think we're in the majority, or in the minority, I should say it there. The only one I've tried 3 times. I have never been able to make it all the way through Thor 2. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I just can't do it. I didn't even love the first Thor. Ragnarok is amazing, but but I digress. Nomadland, definitely a solid win. Very good film. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely worth checking out. It's a slow burn. Like I said, it's very introspective. It certainly will not be for everybody, but it is very, very well made.
Yeah, absolutely. And this leads right into Best Director, which of course is Chloe Zhao. This one I think is absolutely deserving. Second woman in Oscar history to win the Academy Award for Best Director, and first woman of color to do so. I think this is absolutely deserving. I know that we both just said that while Nomadland wasn't necessarily my favorite film of the year, I think that if I was voting, I would have voted for Chloe Zhao as well. Just because Nomadland, the direction of it is amazing. It really is. Like, it's a very much Terrence Malick, where it seems like it's just kind of this stream of consciousness. It's this collection of beautiful vignettes kind of strewn together. And it's also one of the most purely cinematic ones, especially from a lot of the things that are nominated, like even The Father, which is based on a play, The Trial of the Chicago 7, I could see work as a play. What I mean by purely cinematic is something that it just it couldn't exist in the same way in another medium. I know it's essentially based on off of a book, but from my understanding, it is also very different in form and structure. So yeah, I think it's totally deserving. Good on Chloe Zhao. I've always been such a strong supporter of female directors in the Academy and Hollywood recognizing their work more. So I'm glad that she's breaking new ground, and I hope they continue on this trend.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it should be mentioned that the book it's based on, just for anyone watching who didn't know that, it's not a novel. It's kind of it was a journalist who was just writing about these real people. So it's kind of it's just the real story of and I think it does start with perhaps the town where Francis Ford Coppola's husband loses his job. I think that's in the book. I think that's what I read.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I think absolutely a deserving win for Chloe Zhao. Good for her. That's awesome. Bring on Eternals. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Next, we'll do the supporting actors. We'll probably end talking about Best Actor, because I think that one has the most meat to it. For Best Supporting Actress, it was Yoon Yoo Jung. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, but she was the grandmother in the film Minari. This was one of my predictions from last week of who would win. I think she's totally deserving. She's been in the Korean film industry for decades. Like, she has put in the work, the time, the effort, and she's just delightful in the film. Have you seen Minari yet, or no?
I still haven't seen Minari, no.
Yeah, I think once you watch it, I'm sure you'll dig it, and I think you'll agree. Like, it's such a such like a integral part of the film, and she really grounds the entire kind of emotional core of the movie. So deserving win. Also not too much of a surprise. I think, she's been winning a lot of other awards leading up to it, so no real upset there. The next one, Best Supporting Actor, I think this was no surprise as well, but Daniel Kaluuya for Judas and the Black Messiah. He played the real life figure Fred Hampton. I forget, have you seen Judas yet or no?
Still haven't. We talked last week and I was like, I'm going to use this week to catch up with all those movies. And I didn't get caught up with a single one of them.
It's fine. There's a lot of them. Judas is definitely one I would say watch. It's that and Sound of Metal. I think are vying for my favorite of last year. It's really, really good. And Daniel Kaluuya is so great in it, especially because did you see when they kind of showed some of the clips of him speaking or no?
Like I didn't see that part. No.
Okay, so I only bring it up because in it he has like this southern kind of drawl. It's not southern, it's more like mid-Atlantic because it's like kind of Chicago based, but he's got like this American drawl, and it's so spot on. You don't even think of it as an accent. But then of course Daniel Kaluuya is British, but not only that, but he sounds like he's got like the South London accent. Like he came up onto the stage and he sounds like kind of chavvy, like, oh, thanks, bruv. It's hilarious. Like I just love seeing that because it just shows the range that this guy has. Any thoughts on? Oh, go ahead.
Well, and I was gonna say, like, even again, I was introduced, and I think he's tremendous, but I was introduced to him in Black Mirror, where he had a sort of a natural accent. But if you had seen Get Out before you saw him in anything else, there's no way you would have pegged him as British. Like, there's no way. He seems, maybe he's got an amazing dialect coach, but I think he's natural when it comes to changing his accent and voice.
Absolutely. And again, I just kind of want to stress that it's not like a kind of a light British accent like Tom Holland is like, hello, it's Tom Holland. It's a thick, like I said, South London accent. I love it. I think it's great. He cracked me up. He had a great kind of acceptance speech. I always like the acceptance speeches that are a little less kind of like sanctimonious and more like they're genuinely excited and honored to be there. And he seemed like, this is incredible. He was thanking God, thanking his family. He made a joke about his parents having sex, which was hilarious because it cut to his mother reacting to it like,
oh
what?
No,
dude, it was really funny. So good on him. Were you surprised at all? Were you thinking like he was kind of a front runner or had a good shot?
That was the impression I was getting. Yeah, I think we both last week, I think we both called, or 2 weeks ago, whenever we did it, I think we both called that he would win. And good for him, because I've seen him in a few things. I think he's great. And getting an Oscar means you're going to get a lot more work. So
and bring it on. I mean, I can't wait to see what else this guy does. Moving on to Best Actress. Now this one, going into it, it seemed like a bit of a three-way race. It kept going back and forth during the award season leading up to it, because it seemed like these three actresses, Frances McDormand, Viola Davis, and Carey Mulligan, each of them were winning a lot of like the big awards. And what I mean is a good indicator a lot of times for how you predict the Oscars is looking at certain awards like the BAFTAs, Golden Globes, the SAG Awards especially. Typically people who kind of clean up those awards have a good shot of winning the Oscar. But it was like split. Like I think Viola Davis won the SAG Award. I think Carey Mulligan might have won the BAFTA. Going into it, I think I last week I predicted it might have been Carey Mulligan, because it seemed like her in the movie Promising Young Woman had a lot of forward momentum. But at the same time, I think we both agreed that it's like this one's kind of up in the air. But Frances McDormand was the one that brought it home. Definitely deserving. She was terrific in Nomadland. And what an awesome resurgence for her. That was something I wanted to bring up, because she really made a name for herself in the 90s. Obviously, she won her first Academy Award in 96, 97 for Fargo, which is incredible.
And she's so good in it.
Oh, dude, she's amazing. She's amazing. But it seemed like in the early to mid 2000s, from like 2000 to 2010, she didn't do a whole lot. She got work regularly, but I can't really correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't really pinpoint like a standout Frances McDormand starring vehicle.
No, I was just thinking about that, and in that time frame, like I can't
Mm.
think of much, and I don't know if it's just that she wasn't getting work. I seem to remember reading somewhere that she tends to be very selective about what she does.
Yeah.
Um, you know, she's I think maybe she's just one of those performers that isn't The Rock, doesn't feel the need to make 37 movies a
Yeah.
year, but just waits for that right screenplay to come
Mm.
along and just goes all in.
Totally. And I think that because she's married to director Joel Cohen of
Mhm.
one of the Cohen brothers. And I think that during that time, she was having a family and she wanted to focus on that. I mean, she'd already won an Oscar at that point. She had been in a lot of movies. So I think that she probably was like, screw it. I earned some time just to live my life. But since the 2010s, she's been coming back with a vengeance. Like
Mhm.
she won Best Actress for Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Yep.
Phenomenal performance in that. And
Oh, yeah.
then, technically less than 3 years later, she won again for this. So what an incredible kind of resurgence. And she's still not, she's not that up there. She's, 50s ish, maybe going on 60. So she's still got so many more, so much more in her. And I can't wait to see what else she does next.
It's also interesting too, because the three roles she won for are all so distinctly different from one another, and the three movies are incredibly different. But like, Fargo, that was as much a comedic performance as it was a dramatic one. She's hilarious in that movie. And then Three Billboards, she's this like just acerbic, like nasty, mean. And then Nomadland, it's a very quiet performance. She doesn't have a huge amount of dialogue. She's very, I don't want to say she's mean like she is in Three Billboards. She's very standoffish. She's not one to make friends easily. She kind of likes being on her own a lot of the time, hence the nomadic lifestyle. Just three incredibly different performances that just show the kind of range that she has. And it's really impressive. I'm a big fan. So
yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, about a performance in this, I honestly, I do want to say that I think I would have been happy with any of these three actresses, either Viola Davis winning, because I love Viola Davis. I think she's phenomenal. This is, I guess, going into it, I was thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that Carey Mulligan has won an Oscar yet.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, so Viola Davis won for Fences, Best Supporting Actress. So she has an Oscar. Frances McDormand already had two. So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I would have loved to see Viola Davis get a Best Actor, Best Leading Actress award. That would have been great. It would have been awesome to see Carey Mulligan win an Oscar because she's still so young, and I've always been a fan of her. So I would have been happy with any of them. One quick thing I was going to bring up, I had a friend who was really, really rooting for Viola Davis, and I understand it's his girl. He was like, oh, I want her to win. But he said something where he's like, man, I can't believe that Frances McDormand won. She didn't do anything in Nomadland. And I couldn't disagree any further. Like, it is subtle performances don't mean you're not doing anything. Like there was so much pain and pathos just going on in her face. It's a far less showy, far less theatrical performance than Viola Davis and Ma Rainey, but that doesn't make it worse and doesn't make it bad. So I think that all of them were all five of them, by the way. Andra Day was terrific. Vanessa Kirby was phenomenal in her performance. Pieces of a Woman. But yeah, I think that it's hard to argue against Frances McDormand. She's incredible.
Right.
Bad speech though. That's one thing though. I think that you could tell this is her third Oscar and second one in a few years, because she really came up, and I forget exactly what she said, but it was just kind of like, I'm a cowboy, and then just like left. It was very much like, okay. And it would have been probably more emotional if like, let's say Carey Mulligan won, because it would have been the first time. Right. So, I mean, good on her, but yeah. Anyway, no real surprise there, I guess.
Right.
Okay. But now, the one and really truly only surprise of the night, and this was a big one. I was absolutely like, my mouth was on the floor, really. Is that going into this, both you and I predicted it, but it seemed like everybody, every trade from Variety to the Hollywood Reporter to whoever, you ask a random person on the street who's going to win Best Actor this year, Chadwick Boseman, and partially because he'd won all the right awards leading up to it. You know, the SAG Award, yada yada, Golden Globe, I believe. It felt like a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna dip in a little bit because I know we said we're gonna talk about the format last, but I'm gonna just slightly talk about the format. It 1000% felt like the producers of the show were gearing up for that win. First off, they gave everybody I don't know what it was, but something commemorative. They gave all the audience members something commemorative about Chadwick Boseman. It was like his head. I don't know if it was actually like a physical. I was confused at what it was. They said it was an NFT, and maybe I'm just an idiot, but I don't know what an NFT is.
I don't know off the top of my head anyway.
But I saw this thing where it's like everybody in the audience got this Chadwick Boseman commemorative. So it seemed like very much like this is who, you know, yada yada. This, like, we're gonna honor him. During the memoriam thing, he was the last actor that they showed, and they really like held on him. Like everybody else got a few seconds, like this person died, but then it was like Chadwick Boseman, and they lingered on him. And for the first time in I don't know how long, they switched the order of the awards that were being handed out. So instead of Best Picture being last, which makes sense, it's usually is the accumulation of all of the technical and acting awards. That was third to last. Then there was Best Actress, and leading up to Best Actor, and it just seemed primed for this award to be given posthumously. I don't know if I said that right, to Chadwick Boseman. And I don't know if his family was there, if they were going to maybe come up and give like a really emotional speech. I was ready for it. I was like, oh my God, here it comes. Chadwick's going to get it. It's going to be really emotional. It's going to get me right in the gut. And what happened was that Joaquin Phoenix came out, and it really, because I know you said you were listening to it, but watching it, this is really how quickly it happened. I was just watching it. Joaquin Phoenix came out. He's like, and the winner is Anthony Hopkins for The Father. He's not here to accept the award. The Academy accepts it on his behalf. Thank you. Good night. End of show. That was it. No speech, no, nothing. You could see the audience as well. The audience was kind of like right. What the hell just happened? So formatting and everything aside, Anthony Hopkins won the Oscars, second Oscar in his lifetime. First, of course, being for The Silence of the Lambs. 83 years old, so he's the oldest recipient of the acting award. And Court, because you and I talked about this a little bit before, what were your thoughts about him winning for his performance, and what are your thoughts about him winning over Chadwick?
I was shocked that he won. I think, as you said earlier, everybody wanted Chadwick Boseman to win. We've talked about on the show before, you know, the Academy, I mean, the Academy is made up of people, and people are susceptible to an underdog story or, you know, the tragedy of this man passing away at such a young age, having made this movie while being very, very sick.
Yeah.
I mean, who wouldn't be at least potentially swayed to vote in that direction based on that alone? But again, his performance in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is absolutely unreal. He's absolutely incredible. I was shocked that he didn't win, and yet I can't have a problem with it because Anthony Hopkins was just as good in The Father. I don't love The Father the way I love The Silence of the Lambs, because I love that movie. I've read all the books and blah blah blah. I'm in. I would probably argue that his performance in The Father is better than that of Hannibal Lecter. Like, I was so blown away when I saw The Father. I remember, like, I saw it at TIFF back in September, and I said in my review, I was like, he will absolutely, and it was only September. I'm like, there's still months of movies to come out. This movie will be nominated for Best Picture. Anthony Hopkins will be nominated for Best Actor. And you know what? The man absolutely deserves it. I cannot take that away from him. And, you know, good on him, because that performance is like, I can't say enough good about it, particularly, and I won't give anything away here, but there is a scene at the ending where he's talking to a nurse, and it is just absolutely heart-wrenching. And if you guys haven't seen The Father, do yourself a favor. Again, it's a slow burn, but it's the cool thing about The Father is all I'll say is they pull a couple bait and switches in the movie to kind of get you into the headspace of this man who's, succumbing to dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And in a weird way, even though it's a straight drama, it almost feels like a psychological thriller.
Mm-hmm.
At least it did to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It's a very unique movie. And, you mentioned it was based on a play that I believe was written by the guy who directed it, Florian Zeller, I believe is his name.
Correct. Yeah.
And it does feel like a play on screen. It's just a damn good movie. So, you know what? Congratulations to him. And he did say, he put out, because of course they didn't let him make any kind of statement during the show because it just ended. But he did put out a statement the next day that did, I don't remember exactly what he wrote, but he did make a mention of Chadwick Boseman and the talent that the whole world lost way too soon. And
yeah, no, he's a class act. He put out a quick video, and it was a genuinely sweet video of him just saying like, I'm an 83-year-old man. I was asleep in bed in my home in Wales. I was not expecting this at all. So thank you. But also he was like, Chadwick Boseman, left us far too soon. Class act. He's a class act. And yeah, he's a screen legend, and this might be his best role. Like, I'm going to give it some time to kind of like breathe. You're right. It's a very different film than Silence of the Lambs, but he is so good in this movie. It's heartbreaking. And the movie is terrific as well. I said to my wife after we watched it, I was like, that's probably the scariest non-horror movie I've seen in a long time.
Right.
Because it's not, no spoilers. I think it's okay to go in knowing that this is about a character who has dementia. And it tries to kind of put you in the shoes, successfully so, I would say, with the editing, especially, put you in the shoes of someone with dementia. And it's terrifying. It's really it's simultaneously terrifying and heartbreaking to kind of like just lose your touch with reality. Terrific movie. I think he's great. Yeah, I agree with what you said in the beginning as well, where it's like, the Oscars have a history of not just like kind of blindly giving the award for this is the best of the year. Sometimes they give kind of a more, how do I say it? Like an honorary award in the sense of like, this is for your body of work kind of stuff.
Right.
The best example that I have, it happened twice. They flip-flop. For 1975 Oscars, Al Pacino didn't win for The Godfather Part 2, which a lot of people consider to be his best role. Yeah. They gave it to actor Art Carney for a movie I can't even remember. And I bring that up because Art Carney was an elderly man at that point. He had been in the movies for so long, for decades. So in 75, it felt like, let's just give it to him because this is probably going to be the last really big role he's going to have. He's up there in age. Let's give it to him. And then, about 10 years later, they did something similar where Al Pacino won his Oscar for Scent of a Woman, which besides him saying "hoo-ah" is never really considered his best performance. He's not bad.
I mean, it's not anywhere close. Like, he's fine in the movie, and the movie's okay. I don't love it, but
yeah. I bring that up to say that the Oscars have a history of kind of like, okay, well, we didn't give it to you for this, so let's give it to you for that kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's why I felt like, you know what? Anthony Hopkins has won before. He's a screen legend. Chadwick Boseman was taken from us far too early. The dude was 40, like 43. That's ridiculous. It's a tragedy. And he's not going to get another chance. And people can disagree. That's totally cool. It's just kind of my opinion where if I were voting, I think I would kind of vote in the favor of like, this is an honorary moment. This is something you're going to go down in the history of like, one, it's a performance that alone does deserve an Oscar. I think he's terrific in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Terrific. But it's also an acknowledgement that this was a beautiful talent that was taken from us far too soon. And there's not going to be another shot. So I think that, I don't know. I would have given it to Chadwick, but it's hard to argue that as far as performances go, Anthony Hopkins crushed it.
I'm weird because I kind of flip flop on that because, in its purest form, the Academy Awards are supposed to be about excellence in filmmaking. Mm-hmm. So I am kind of bummed that he didn't get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's kind of like credit to the Academy. They gave it to the person they felt gave the best performance of the year, which
Mhm.
is at its bare bones, that's what it should be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that it is. Also want to bring this up that like there a lot of talk has been brought up, especially in regards to Frances McDormand as well, kind of winning over Viola Davis. A talk of the Oscars kind of favoriting kind of white performers, especially when it comes to leading roles. And as two white guys, I think that we can both kind of say like we're not, we're. I think that you and I are in agreement like we're not going to like die on that hill. Like if someone really feels like, I think that there might be more favoritism among the voting members of the Academy towards white actors. As a white guy, I'm not going to be like, no, that's crazy. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah,
maybe if there was different voters, it could have shook out differently. If you believe that, you know, a, another old white guy winning over a young black actor is kind of more privileged in Hollywood. I'm not really going to argue with you. I don't know.
no,
I don't know the facts. I don't know what the exact percentage of the voting member goes out. Either way, the one thing I'll say about it is that I do love the Oscars. I'm I'm not as a film lover, I'm not a competitive person in that regard. When I watch these movies, I'm not like, oh, which one's better? Which is a better performance? Chadwick Boseman was phenomenal. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is a great movie.
Mhm.
Anthony Hopkins is great. Let's just be film fans. Okay. The Oscars are fun to talk about, but as film lovers, let's just appreciate everything.
Well, and you know what? Another thing too, and I don't want to discredit the other three actors who were nominated, but
Yeah.
for the sake of this discussion, okay, getting a posthumous Oscar that would be amazing for your legacy. But
Mm.
you know what? Just to even say, and I don't want to go with like, well, just being nominated is the but the fact that his legacy, that performance, people thought was worthy of going up against Sir Anthony Hopkins'
Mm-hmm.
performance in The
Yeah.
Father.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something to be said for that too.
Yeah.
It's not the same. It's not as cool for the family or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
there is something to be said because he's in incredible company.
Yeah. Yeah. And absolutely. And to be honest, I think we can both agree that some of our favorite movies, some of our favorite performances of all time have neither either been nominated or won Oscars. You know what I mean? Like the Oscars are cool and it's a great recognition, but it's by no means the only barometer of what a great film or great performance is.
Right.
Yeah, we're going a little long. I'm going a little long in the tooth than I intended. So I'll just kind of quickly talk about kind of the format, if that's cool with you, so we can get on to the other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, weird format this year. Of course, I don't think this is a surprise to anyone, but this is the first Academy Awards during the pandemic. And instead of having it in kind of the very large, opulent, gorgeous Dolby Theater, which they normally do, which has like hundreds and hundreds of seats, they did it in a train station, I believe. And it seemed like I would be surprised if there was even 100 people in that room. It seemed very small. So intimate was what they were going for, obviously, because people are getting vaccinated, but the pandemic's still very real and out there. Well, on one hand, I kind of liked that for this year, they had this kind of intimate setting. However, going forward, I think that if we're gonna try to keep, the connotation or keep the perspective that the Oscars are important and prestigious, I think you gotta bring it back to the Dolby Theater. You gotta bring it back to like, this is a big event. We're all dressed to the nines in this massive, gorgeous theater. As far as just like the location, did you have any thoughts on kind of the little intimate setting they had?
Not really, because again, I didn't actually see very much of the show.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of heard most of it. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. So I mean, there's
I don't
that.
even think I noticed that it wasn't at the Dolby.
Oh, dude, I feel like I think if you were to look at side by side pictures, you'd be like, oh yeah, at least of the audience, you'd be like, oh, there's 20 people here compared to like 300.
I remember seeing like one shot of Frances McDormand. She was like sitting at a table like all by herself, which
Yeah.
like you never see.
Yeah, it cracked me up because he kept cutting back to her, and it was just her husband Joel Cohen there, and he just seemed he has like resting bitch face where he's just like, I'm sure he's like probably a lovely guy, and it's just like happens to be his stoic face. But he
Right.
kept cracking me up when someone is giving an emotional speech, and Joel Cohen's just like he seems like he wants to be anywhere else.
Right.
But yeah, weird kind of I mean, it was intimate setting, but it was a weird switch up. I don't know why they decided to do this, but it wasn't just the best picture and actor thing that they switched up, but they were all over the place with the awards. Like best director was given out very early. That's usually saved to like second to last or very close to the last. Um, I don't know why they did that. Also, I say for the future, get rid of it. I think that it helps build the momentum to kind of space it out and then lead into like best director, best actor, actress, best picture. Because if you kind of space it out like that, then it's sort of like I think you might lose people's interest by the end. I don't know.
Right.
This is my thought.
Well, and keeping people's interest to the end seems to be exactly what they were going for with having best actor being the final category. And I found that not only just because I think everyone thought Boseman was going to win, and yeah, they probably thought they were going to have this big thing. That seems incredibly cynical to me.
Yeah.
That they would just arbitrarily put it at the end because they wanted to keep the viewers as long as they could. Particularly, it cynical. It almost feels kind of gross too. Like
Yeah.
taking this man's legacy and using it to keep viewers. I don't know. Maybe that's not a fair way to look at it, but that's kind of how it that rubbed me the wrong way very much.
No, you're not wrong. A lot of people thought the same way, where it really seemed like they were kind of capitalizing on the fact that
Right.
there was going to be this big emotional moment. Like I said, they gave everybody one of those party favors, something commemorative about Chadwick Boseman. It seemed like, I mean, he's one of like hundreds of famous people that died last year, including like Sean Connery and stuff like that. And it seemed like they were priming everyone to be like, well, get the Kleenex ready. It's going to be a tearjerker of a finale. Watch for Chadwick Boseman. Psych, he didn't win. Bye. It's like, okay. Yeah, so I agree. I think that that felt a bit what's the word? Shady. Yeah, like you were saying, a bit kind of sleazy. So yeah, don't for future Oscar telecasts, don't do that. Just keep it the way it was. One last thing I'll say before we kind of move on. I wanted to talk to you about the ratings that the Oscars had. So the Oscars had an all-time low ratings this year, which is about 10 million. Now, I think that for rational people like you and me, I think that would not be surprising, right? If we hear that the Oscars during a pandemic that's not even shown at full capacity for a series of movies that not many people have seen compared to other years.
Yeah,
I think anybody could have been like, yeah, this is going to be a low rating Oscar year. I mean, a lot of people didn't even know the Oscars were happening this year. And so I don't think it's really newsworthy. However, I can't help but keep seeing a bunch of really cynical people, especially on YouTube. I'm not going to call anybody out on names. I don't like to start weird channel feuds, but there's a lot of them where they're just like, one, like Oscars had the worst ratings in history. Still at 10 million viewers, which isn't that bad, but sure, it's lowest in history. But they're equating it as like, is this the decline of Hollywood?
Right.
Have you been seeing that kind of narrative being pushed? Because I've been seeing it a lot.
I've seen a little bit of it, and I will request that you message me these YouTube channels later.
No, I'll probably just send you some of the videos, because I'm like, I'm sorry, but you guys are idiots. Like, here's the thing. Hypothetically, even if the Oscars, let's say next year, got 5 viewers, not 5 million, got 5 viewers, that is not the death of Hollywood. You know what I mean? Like 2019 had the highest grossing box office year of all time, even adjusted for inflation. It was like 12 or 13 billion dollars in revenue.
Right.
The Oscars is kind of a prestigious award, but it's primarily oftentimes not really given. Its focus is never really the highest grossing movies of the year. Like, I know Joker was nominated, that made $1 billion, that was nominated for 2019, but typically it's much more like smaller films, dramas that don't make a ton of money. So I know, like you said, you haven't really been seeing it, but like I just wanted to put out that, like, how dumb I think it is to equate like, oh, Hollywood as the big movie and in music industry is on the decline because the Oscars didn't get that high of ratings. The two are
Yeah.
not the same. Like if there was a Venn diagram, there's not going to be anything in the middle. You guys are being ridiculous. If you want to, I know that there's people that are just like Hollywood sucks, down with the Hollywood elite, blah blah blah. They're waiting for anything to kind of like poo-poo on the movie industry, which is
Also
fun.
clickbait.
Oh yeah, clickbait for sure. And they're just waiting for anything to jump on it. But here's the thing: even if the Oscars get canceled, I wouldn't start signaling the death of Hollywood until movies. The grand total of money made by movies in theaters was like 10 million next year, or
Right.
nobody continued to listen to music. Hollywood's doing just fine.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys need to shut up.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, so I guess we should move on. I think we'll just sort of fly through these trailers really quick because we'll start with Tomorrow War. So this is a sort of sci-fi movie where my understanding is 30 something years in the future, there's a war going on between humanity and some kind of alien species, I believe.
Mhm.
And so people from that time come back in time 30 years and say, okay, you guys got to give us like your best and brightest to come fight because we don't have enough people. It's got Chris Pratt. It's got Yvonne Strahovski from Handmaid's Tale, who's great. I believe J.K. Simmons is in there.
Oh, really?
There's not a lot to talk about in this teaser. We really don't see much. We see Chris Pratt carrying a gun, signaling to other people, At one point we get a quick shot of something that looks a little bit serpentine, some kind of lizard-like alien, maybe,
yeah.
but it's pretty much all I got.
I feel dumb because I messaged you being like, yeah, this could be one of the trailers that we talk about. And I did it because I saw this little preview and I really thought it was just one of those like 30-second snippets of the full trailer. I thought the full trailer was out. It's not. It's just this 30-second spot, which is weird. It's not even a full teaser. So I feel dumb recommending it because it doesn't show anything. It shows some shots of a city being blown up. I think it's Los Angeles. Could be wrong. I don't know. City being blown up. It seems that not only is it sort of time travel-y, but it seems to be alluding to some sort of alien thing because someone says like, what we're fighting isn't human. Right. And then you hear just like a weird, that was a horrible noise.
I liked it actually.
And you hear this weird noise. So I guess they're fighting aliens. You're right. Not much to say about this one.
Were you able to place the music in the trailer? Because it was very, very familiar to me and I just couldn't.
Nah, man, I can't even. I gun to my head, I could not tell you what the music sounded like.
I feel like it was like, what a wonderful world, but done like orchestral, but I don't think it was that. I don't know. I'd have to watch it again.
Yeah. So that not much to say. Chris Pratt's in a movie. The end.
And I believe it's coming out on
July 2nd.
July 2nd, yeah.
It's gonna be on Amazon.
Yeah.
Sounds. I'll check it out. It's directed by Chris McKay. I don't know who that is. Let me see. Oh, dude, he's the director of the Lego Batman movie.
Oh, there it is. Okay, well that's
I like that.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
Hopefully, this teaser is hiding. What is it? It's hiding the secret that this is just a goofy, off the wall comedy. I would love it if it just becomes the Lego Batman movie too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on to Luca. Luca is the new Pixar film. I guess essentially so it seems from what I got from the trailer, it seems it kind of focuses on these two brothers who I guess are mermen or something along those lines.
Merman.
I was gonna do that too if you hadn't. I think I'm getting the black lung pop. It's so good. But I guess they're mermen or some kind of like sea creatures, but they can go up onto land where they look human. I got the impression it takes place in Italy from the accents. That's what I was getting. I didn't love this trailer. It took a while to hook me. I sort of started getting into it towards the end when we sort of see the hijinks of when they get sprayed with water. We see their true look. But the first like half of the trailer, I was just kind of bored and I wasn't really feeling it. I'm fairly certain it'll be good because I have yet to see a Pixar movie I haven't liked. Granted, I have not seen Cars 2. I've heard mostly negative things.
I haven't seen it either.
Okay. And you know what? For me, last year, I think Pixar was on a really good roll. I really liked Onward. I really liked Soul. I think I actually liked Onward more than Soul. I think I just sort of connected with the story a little bit better, but um, I think it's going to be good. I forgot to look up the cast. I don't know if there was anyone of note in there.
Yeah, a little bit. So we have Jacob Tremblay, who was, the boy wonder that's been in a bunch of stuff. So he's one of the brothers. Jack Dylan Grazer, who is one of the for me, he's great. He's a really funny kid, and he's as kids do, he's getting grown up fast.
He was also in Shazam, right?
Yes, yeah, he's cool. He's a cool dude. So we have Maya Rudolph, Jim Gaffigan's in it. So not like a huge star-studded cast or anything, but some recognizable names. Okay. I think I'm a bit biased with this one because although I mean I'm Italian American, so I grew up in America, but my family is Italian, and I very much like kind of relate to. I have a ton of family that's still living in Italy that I talk to often and stuff. So I connect with that a lot. So yeah, the movie looks pretty delightful. It looks like closer to, let's say, Onward than Soul, in the sense of like this looks more like a kind of like a fun fantasy adventure as opposed to more of one of the deeper metaphysical kind of Pixar movies.
Yeah, it's definitely got more of a whimsy to it. Yeah.
Keep in mind, as an Italian, I'm not hurting for media that represents Italians. Like if I want to watch a movie about Italian and Italian culture, there's a million of them. So I'm not saying that we're an underrepresented group, but there's something.
But as a merman, now at least you're getting that part.
So that's So I'm half Italian, half merman. So that's the thing. But but I was gonna say that there is something really kind of special and some kind of neat of seeing kind of your heritage represented in a kind of a caricature way, not in an insulting way, but it's as a cartoon. It's sort of like it's like, oh, it's like, everything's kind of like exaggerated, and they're Vespas and gelato, and it looks beautiful. And I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of fun Italian jokes in there. So I'm all for it. I think that I like Pixar's kind of, I hope they continue to do this, where I think they really started with Coco, where it's like, okay, we're going to be really diving into Mexican culture.
Right.
And then Soul was a little bit more metaphysical, but also seemed to be kind of diving into African-American culture, with which was interesting. This seems to be very much like, Italian culture. I hope to do more stuff like this. Like, I'd love to see, like, okay, Pixar diving into Japanese culture, diving into Indian culture. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of like a world tour with Pixar. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like a little bit biased, but I think this looks delightful. It's one of these things where I want to show my little old Italian grandma this movie, because I think that she would have a hoot with it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And I believe it's coming out June 18th on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll talk about it when it does come out. So finally, before we get to the Mitchells versus the Machines, just quickly, and at first I thought, why so early? They put out a teaser trailer for Steven Spielberg's remake of West Side Story, which was supposed to come out December of last year, pandemic. It's been pushed to December. I believe it's December 9th of this year. So at first I was like, it's April. Why are we putting out a trailer this early? Then I realized they put it out during the Oscars because obviously West Side Story is probably going to be an Oscar type movie. And that's why they pushed it till December, because they want it to be relevant. Have you seen the original film?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. I grew up with it. I'm a fan of it. I like to be in America. I've been looking forward to this because, I like the original movie, but it always felt maybe like a little bit too light. Just, we are talking about American street gangs, and I get it, it's a musical, there's got to be singing and dancing, but just the 60s setting, not even the setting, but the fact that it was made in the 60s, it always felt like that movie might have worked better if it had a little bit more teeth. And we don't get a lot of footage in this teaser trailer. We get, the big school dance, and we get a couple moments, I think, heading into the Rumble, and a couple of the romantic moments. But just from the cinematography alone, there's that shot of the alleyway where you see the long shadows of the two gangs coming together. Great shot.
Beautiful, almost like fisheye lens, ultra wide. And that's a terrific shot.
Yeah. And I do feel like gritty is a word that gets like a bad rap these days. Like everything has to be gritty as if that's a bad thing. Again, we're talking about street gangs in New York in the 60s. I'm sure in real life, it wasn't a lot of singing and dancing. So I did get the distinct impression from this teaser that I don't imagine there's going to be tons of swearing and blood and all that kind of stuff, but I feel like it's going to be a little grittier, a little bit more hardcore. Did you get that impression from the teaser at all?
Yeah, absolutely. The cinematography by I'm gonna butcher his first name, but I believe it's Janusz Kaminski, and he's a long time what?
I was gonna say, I know that name.
Yeah, longtime Spielberg cinematographer. Done Schindler's List, Minority Report, Saving Private Ryan. So not every Spielberg movie, but kind of from the 90s on, especially 2000s, they've worked very closely together. Beautiful cinematography. As far as the grittiness of it does feel far less stagey, of course, than the original. It seems much, not in like an edgy sort of way, but it feels more grounded. It feels more kind of realistic, even though it is going to be heightened with essentially musical numbers and everything. I'm very much looking forward to this. The original West Side Story is a classic American musical. Obviously a bit, if you're not, it's a product of its time, where, like you said, it's early 60s. So musicals at that time were kind of still very colorful and full of fluff, which is, I like it. I like kind of going back in kind of, the different genres and tones that cinema had over the decades. But West Side Story has always been kind of the original has always been a film that a lot of American filmmakers, especially growing up around that time, it's been a major influence on them. Like Martin Scorsese talks about it, Francis Ford Coppola, George Lucas, even Michael Bay says it's one of his favorite movies. And you can tell because it really is like the technical craft of it. It really is like a wonderfully shot, ultra beautiful, like ultra widescreen CinemaScope photography. It's a great film if you haven't seen it, and if you guys are interested in kind of classic Hollywood musicals, it's a great one to watch. And I think that it simultaneously has been primed for a remake for quite a while, but I think it needed someone with the caliber of Spielberg to do it, because it is a classic story and it's such a revered original movie. Well, I mean, it's based on a play, or based on a musical, but
which in turn was essentially based on Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, it's very much Romeo and Juliet.
But
yeah, but it's. I'm glad that they didn't get like some Joe Schmo. It's just like, let's just do it for the money. It has a cachet value with the name, yada yada. This is definitely a passion project. Like, Spielberg is not doing West Side Story for the money. It's been one of his favorite films, and that alone has gotten me excited. And the trailer looks really good. It's a brief teaser. It doesn't show you too much, but it looks visually stunning. This is definitely going to be a big contender. Obviously we don't know what else it's going to be really competing against, but it is going to be a big contender for the Oscars next year. Like, with a December release date and the prestige that it has behind the camera, it's definitely going to be pushing for that.
Well, and for me too, it's like, I do like, the main role of Tony's being played by Ansel Elgort. So I hope he can sing. But most of the rest of the cast, and of course in the original, a lot of the so in the film you have the two gangs. You have the Jets, who are like the New York boys, or the white boys, and you have the Sharks, who are all people from Puerto Rico. And a lot of those were played by white people. Natalie Wood, of course, plays Maria. Here it looks like the cast is very diverse, but also most of them, I was looking through it, most of them I think are relatively unknowns. And I remember reading probably about a year ago that the woman who got the job to play Maria, I think they auditioned like thousands of people. They found her from like a high school talent show or something, which is just cool. And I saw today that Rita Moreno, who is a main character in the original, she's back there giving her I'm assuming probably a pretty small role in this, but I
Yeah.
think that's cool. But
Oh yeah.
my big thing is, one thing I love about Spielberg is, I mean, first off, he's just a phenomenal filmmaker, and he's made so many movies that I love, or so many movies that I love because I hate them so much, like a Schindler's List. Like, it's just such a hard movie to watch, or Saving Private Ryan, or but he's such a deft filmmaker, and he's done so many different things. He's done action, he's done comedy, he's done historical drama, he's done fantasy. Never done a musical before.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how that works, and so far I'm thinking it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, same here. I was thinking the same thing, that he's done so many different genres, and again, I think that what is helping me get more excited is, okay, what is the first musical that someone with the type of filmography that Spielberg has, what is the first musical he decides to do? Well, it's a remake of West Side Story, and I think that it's really going to be a passion project for him. One last thing I'll say, and before we kind of move on, or if you have anything else to say, I find it interesting, especially if we're talking about Oscars 2022, which is, I know, way too early to be doing it, but it's just kind of how my mind works. There are two very similar movies that are coming out. So we have West Side Story, and we also have the movie In the Heights. For people who don't know, because it might not be in a lot of people's radar, it's probably more on mine because my wife is musical theater. So I'm much more into that world. But In the Heights is based on the musical that Lin-Manuel Miranda of Hamilton fame did before Hamilton. But it also won the Tony. It also won, so it was like a really popular musical. And I got to see it, not in Broadway, of course, but I got to see a production of it. It's terrific. Now, the reason why I bring it up is because it's very much inspired by West Side Story.
Oh, okay.
So West Side Story, let's say it's like set in 50s in New York, kind of not in ritzy neighborhoods, but it follows a lot of Puerto Rican characters, and it's a lot about immigration and about themes. I'm saying it's all about immigrations and such. And it was also, the music is very much of that time, of kind of classic Hollywood musics. You're the show tunes and that.
Right.
In the Heights, very much inspired by it, because it's set in modern day New York. It's set in Washington Heights, which is a very Latino centric neighborhood. A lot of, I believe the main characters are mostly Dominican, but there's also Puerto Rican and I think Cuban as well. But it's also very contemporary, in the sense that if anybody's listened to Hamilton, they know that Lynn's style of writing music for musicals is infusing rap and hip hop into it. And there's already people talking about, like, even though it's going to be a summer movie, In the Heights, people are saying like, no, they're priming it for an Oscar kind of push. Okay. And I don't know, I just found that interesting, that it's like you have this old school kind of musical and this very, very modern, a new school kind of musical with similar themes and settings, all both vying for supremacy at the 2022 Oscars. So who's going to win? Is it the new school? Is it the old school? I don't know. Something I find interesting.
We will see. Mm-hmm. All right, so we will move on finally to we're going to do a spoilers review of the new Netflix movie, The Mitchells versus the Machines. Of course, again, we're not going to hit every beat because we've gone on a little bit long as it is, but before we sort of get into it, Chris, do you want to give me your overall thoughts on the movie?
Sure. Just garbage, just pure agony from start to finish. Okay. So I went into this knowing absolutely nothing. Like, I think I heard about it and I knew what the title was, so I could kind of guess what the plot was. You said you were watching it and you're like, to check it out, and I was like, okay, cool. I went on Rotten Tomatoes, has a very, very high score, so I'm like, sure. Yeah. I asked my wife, I'm like, hey, do you want to see this? Okay, yeah, let's do it for the show. Fantastic film. This is a delightful, wonderful animated movie that is a laugh a minute. It's just a joy from start to finish. And I just, without going into too much detail, I really enjoyed it, and I've been recommending it to a lot of people over the weekend.
I was saying to a buddy of mine yesterday, like, honestly, I think it's one of my favorite movies of the year so far. I also went in cold. I hadn't seen a trailer. I knew who was in it. I'm a big Abby Jacobson fan because I loved Broad City. and I mean, it's a stacked cast. I mean, you have Abby Jacobson, Danny McBride, um,
Got Maya Rudolph.
Maya Rudolph, thank you. Beck Bennett, Fred Armisen, they were hilarious together. Olivia Colman is the villain. Eric Andre's in there. I'm told Conan O'Brien was in there. I didn't hear him, but
yeah, I didn't catch it, but I see his name in the credits. So
yeah. I think it said his name was like Glaxon 3000. I wonder if that was the crazy new robots at the end, but the voices were so vocoded that even if it was Conan, you probably wouldn't tell. But so essentially the plot of this movie is Abby Jacobson plays Katie. I think she's, about college age. She's really into filmmaking. She really wants to be a filmmaker, and she makes all these home movies with her dog. She's got her own little green screen, and she gets her brother involved, and she gets accepted to film school. And shortly before, the night before she's supposed to leave to go to fly across the country to go to school, she and her father, played by Danny McBride, get into an argument. She's trying to get him to watch her new home movie, and he kind of doesn't. And he's basically saying, well, and it's not he's not trying to be mean or anything. He loves his daughter, but he's basically saying, have a backup plan in case the filmmaking doesn't work out. And she's sitting there going, well, how you don't even watch my stuff. What do you know? And then they end up. Sorry,
I just wanted to say about it's one of those things where I think a lot of times in animated movies, they fully put you behind the protagonist or the kids, and it's usually the parents that are super like lame and out of touch. But I just will say, without any spoilers, the friggin' video that she shows him, I don't blame any father just being like, the hell is this? Like, right. It's hilarious. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's like what she's showing him. I think anybody would have been like, what am I watching right now? It was great. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, it at the end of the movie, it pays off where we see the rest of the film, and we'll get there. But because again, this is a spoilers video. And I should say, if you don't want to be spoiled, and we haven't really gone into spoilers yet, so this is a good time for me to say it. If you don't want to be spoiled, click off the video now. I'll put a little card up there. I have a non-spoiler review on my channel, so you can check that out again up there somewhere. But so they kind of having a struggle, and then he ends up accidentally breaking her laptop, and she gets very angry and storms away. And so I guess I'll finish describing the plot and then we'll get into it. He ends up, we have a moment with her father where he's sort of thinking back on their relationship growing up, and it's really touching. Like, I think that was 15 minutes into the movie and I was already getting emotional. I just met these characters, but it was done so well. And then the next morning she wakes up and he's canceled the flight. The whole family's going to drive her across the country to try and get the family to be happy again and what have you. So it's a road trip family movie. And then there's a robot apocalypse and they have to kind of save the world. And what I really liked about this film, one of the many things is there is a robot apocalypse. And I do think this movie is going to be good for all ages. I think it's going to be great for families because the themes in there for adults. Essentially, this movie is the story of a father and daughter trying to repair a very significantly troubled relationship. But then you have all this wacky comedy, and the comedy in this movie is very, very funny. I was laughing out loud. This is a spoilers review, so I'm going to spoil like one joke, but just to give you guys sort of the idea of the comedy here, because I liked that this movie didn't feel like a Pixar movie or a Disney movie. It's got the look of the animation, but even just like they didn't write it or direct it, but this is produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. So it's got that zaniness of like the Lego movies, or actually got a distinct Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs flavor from it. The sense of humor is very wacky. And there's a moment where, I don't know where they are. They're still driving across the country, but at one point they stop and the father, Rick, says, I signed us up for a 7-hour mule tour up and down this mountain. And Katie goes, doesn't that sound a little dangerous? He was like, no, it'll be fine. And then it's a smash cut and they're galloping through the rain and he's shouting, get to the bridge if you want to live. And then we see one of the mules like floating down this crazy river. And she's like, what about Prancer? And he's like, Prancer belongs to the canyon now. Like, it was so ridiculous. It was so over the top. I was howling.
Yeah. I mean, no, yeah, it starts off like the Fast and Furious, where I think it's gonna make or break people, like whether they want to continue within the first 30 seconds, where there's a weird like mashup of like it starts in media res, so there's a car going off a cliff or whatever, not a cliff, but it's just flying in the air and the whole family screaming in the car, and it's intercut with this real video of a howler monkey intercut with the dad screaming, and it's hyperkinetic. But it's hilarious. This movie. The one thing I'll say is that really stood out. And I mean, there's so much about it, but the humor is really terrific. It's really funny. It's I haven't laughed this hard consecutively during a movie in quite some time. Usually, even a movie that I find really funny, it's more like big laughs kind of spread throughout. But this one had like big laughs throughout, like from start to finish. And a lot of it's a mixture of like just absurd, like the smash cuts that you were describing, well, also like really clever kind of like, how do I say it? Clever kind of like built up and then payoffs kind of throughout the movie. It feels very much like the Lego movie, feels very much like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Another thing I want to talk about is the art style, which is it's very unique, but it's also similar to another Phil Lord, Chris Miller film, which is Into the Spider-Verse, because it has sort of the cell shading to it, where it's like there's a lot more texture and it's a little bit more cartoony, but it also has like this beautiful cell shading to it. And this movie really is a visual treat to see. And I was kind of sad that I didn't get to see this in theaters, because I think on a massive screen, it would have been incredible. Like since we're talking about spoilers, there's a beautiful shot. This happens a couple times, but there's a beautiful shot of like just a character, I think like kind of standing on a cliff, and then they see the facility where all the humans are being harvested. And so you see like this glowing kind of bluish green trail of them in the air, and then they're filling up this kind of like this V vial. And it's in the background, in the foreground is a character in silhouette. I was like, holy shit, that's a beautiful shot. So the animation's gorgeous. It's a laugh a minute, laugh every 30 seconds, but also, like you said, very emotional. It has the kind of the family drama that is not necessarily the most original. I mean, we've seen a lot of animated movies. I mean, the Goofy movie off the top of my head literally about a young kid going off to college and having sort of this disconnect with their father, and they go on a road trip, and by the end of it, they make up. It's the Goofy movie, but done in a much different way. I'm not saying it's copying that, but it's like, you've seen this type of story before, but it's just done with so much originality and freshness that it's infectious.
Yeah, and I mean the relationship between Rick and Katie by the end of the movie is just we have a couple of moments where, there's the moment where she finds the video camera and she's seeing the footage of when she was a baby. And that bit where, we find out that it was his lifelong dream to live in that cabin in the woods that he built himself, and him saying goodbye to it because it's better for his daughter, and him taking the little moose head that he gifted to her. Like, all that stuff was just heartbreaking, and just beautifully done. And I do want to say this. I thought the whole voice cast was good. I felt like Maya Rudolph didn't get a whole lot to do, but my hat's off to Danny Mcbride particularly, and Abby Jacobson, because I know them both primarily as comedians, but it didn't even sound like Danny Mcbride to me. Like, he wasn't doing that sort of Southern accent that he often has, like in Eastbound and Down, but he played the role really well. There was an honesty there that, like, I don't know that I knew that guy had in him. And I'll say this too, like, this movie moved me to tears a couple of times, but the weird thing is, one of the times it did that was the closing credits. Because this movie is all about family. The closing credits, basically every credit it has, director, sound designer, whatever, it's shown with like a real photograph of that person and their family. And after going through this journey with this family that was so beautiful, I found that absolutely just absolutely touching. Did that work
Yeah.
for you?
Oh yeah, totally. I forgot about it until you mentioned it, but yeah, the whole theme is kind of family, which again is not the most original of themes, especially when it comes to animated movies. But this one felt less kind of cloying. It felt less disingenuous. Where in other movies would be like, family is important. This one, especially because of the closing credits, really felt like no, like family is everything, and that
Right.
it's just these people mean, they're the ones that make everything worth it. Yeah, it was I don't know, man. I think this is the second time that like an animated movie you said like you were moved to tears, but it just didn't quite get me. I don't know
Yep.
why. I don't know if I have a weird like unfun meter in my brain, just like no, this is animated. Don't like you can't cry. So I don't know. Maybe I have no heart.
No,
But
I think it's more I'm just an old softie, but
okay.
yeah.
But no, it's still I still felt the emotions in the sense that like I still cared about the characters and I wanted there to be this sort of you wanted to see the resolution. There was the conflicts that happened like when they're kind of infiltrating the robot facility, and the father Rick sees the video back from like earlier in the movie when they were in a diner and the daughter was essentially like she was saying negative stuff. I forget the exact wording, and it's like just like a needle or like a knife in the heart. And you really wanted this family to come together. You didn't want them to be at odds.
Yeah.
And yeah, so great. I mean, like hats off to the writing and the entire crew for making you care about that.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's one thing we see towards the end is the father Rick ends up seeing her full home movie, and so she uses her own pug dog as the main kid. It's
Oh,
called Good Cop, Dog Cop, and there's a scene where it's the basic context is the dog cop and the Sarge are stand-ins for Katie and the father, and the father saying, well, what if being a cop doesn't pay off? And she's just saying like, listen, I need you in my corner. And then he makes the connection, and it was absolutely fucking beautiful.
yeah.
It's yeah, I mean, so let me ask you this: do you have any negatives with the movie that you want to talk about, or
Um, Before I get into negatives, I do want to bring this quick thing up. While I'm also trying to think of any negatives. I was just gonna say that I really liked how this is a very like film buff kind of friendly movie. Like it's like I mean it's not just. I was surprised because obviously like we were saying the main character Katie wants to be a filmmaker and she's going to school and or she's planning to go to film school in Los Angeles. But there are so many film references in this movie, and not just like obvious ones, like you'd see like oh there's a Jaws reference or this and that. No, I was pausing it several times, especially in the first like 30 minutes. Like there was like this image of like a collage of like all these videos she was doing, and there's like riffs on like Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and there's references to that director Celine Sciamma and references to Lynn Ramsey, who's a female director who made We Need to Talk About Kevin, which is a brutal movie that I never thought would ever get referenced in a friggin' kids movie.
right?
So seriously, like not just if you're like if you have kids or anything, but if you're like a film lover, like if you consider yourself a film buff, there's a surprising level of deep cuts and references, which I really appreciated. I love seeing films that are made by like cinema fans, like that share their love of cinema and not just kind of the big blockbusters or just American movies. Anyway, that's a dumb little tangent. As far as negatives, I don't have any like serious negatives. I think that the movie might be just a hair too long. It's nearly two.
That's one of mine.
Yeah, it's nearly 2 hours, and it's it could have got shortened. There was definitely some parts when it was just kind of like action of just the kind of them fighting robots, and that's like it's visual noise and it looks good. It looks visually impressive, but it probably would have been more impressive for if I was a kid. It's probably more visually impressive for kids, more stimulating. But for me, I'm just kind of like okay. But also it's less like I have something specifically negative about it, but I think that it just didn't really reach the mark for me in the sense that I know it's arbitrary, but let's say out of 5 stars, like that's kind of my like how I think of things. Like out of 5 stars, I'd probably give this a 4,
Okay.
just because one, like I said, I think it's a little too long, but two, I didn't cry at it. At the end of that, I didn't feel like someone that I know that I like to said like this movie's really deep. I don't think it is deep. I think it's emotional, but I don't think there's really like much to it under the surface. There's a bit.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, there's a bit that talks about our culture when it comes to technology and our reliance on it. But even then, that's like I think that we've been there. Like there's a whole bit where the Wi-Fi is shut off and everyone freaks out, and it's like it's funny, but it's not like whoa. I never thought of this before. People are addicted to like I get it.
I will say in that, so in the movie, there are moments where you see as the robot stuff is going down, you see footage from cities all across the world, like Independence Day or whatever.
Yeah.
And I got a little thrilled because there was a scene that took place in Toronto. I appreciated that. I did see, I was looking on IMDb. I was just looking at user reviews out of curiosity. And most of them were like 9 and 10 out of 10. People are seemingly really loving this movie.
Yeah.
But I saw one saying this was like boomer bullshit, anti-technology, blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
no.
Is it though? Like, I mean, it's poking fun at our reliance on our smartphones and all that, but at the same time, it's also showing us that like Katie is using green screen technology and her laptop and all this to be creative and make films and all that. So I don't know. I thought that was kind of a silly criticism myself.
Yeah, I didn't get that feeling at all. It's certain the one thought I had was, I mean, if anything, especially from the first 10 minutes, was like, this is such a millennial / Gen Z film. Like
Right.
it's as the humor especially is like anybody kind of like in kind of our generation, especially even younger, I think that will relate to this entirely because it is that level of randomness, random humor and zany wackiness. But yeah, also where it never felt preachy and it never felt like technology is evil. I think it's a pretty, safe and common sense message of like, hey, don't make this your entire life.
Right.
I mean, like there's positive things about it. I mean, so much of the communication and what Katie was able to do was with technology and cameras and computers and phones. And there were even some good robot sidekicks, so it wasn't like all technology was bad. I just think it's a healthy thing of like, there's live life, there's life outside of your phone, but the phones aren't all bad. So no, I think that person was way off the mark with that. This is not a boomer kind of thing at all.
Not
In
at
fact, I was surprised. One last thing before I hand it over is that my wife messaged her family, so my in-laws, and they're like late 50s, early 60s. And she was like, oh, I told them to watch it. And at first I was like, I don't know. Like, I think that Howler Monkey opening might be too much. But they loved it. They messaged us like this is how I know they liked it, because they messaged us with just one thing. It said, deregulate tapioca. And we knew that, which is a great line that makes no sense, but I knew like they loved it. And so I think that's why it's like, yeah, this movie really is for all ages. I think that like if you're a young kid, it has like the zany goofiness to it. It captures the feeling of being a teenager, being a young adult, about to venture off into college, which is a very scary, exciting time of your life. But it also captures, being a parent or being an adult and kind of like you seeing your kids, kind of the next generation. And I don't know, it works on all levels.
Yeah. I'll tell you my couple of quick negatives, but first I just want to, this movie had a lot of like really nice little touches, little attention to detail, but my favorite one, I don't know if you noticed this, whenever we see good cop, dog cop, because she shot it on a green screen and she's not working with amazing lighting and technology, whatever, when the dog's on the screen, you see that little green outline around it. I was like, as a guy who uses a green screen in my videos, like that is such a nice touch.
Yeah,
because that's hard to get rid of unless you really know what you're doing, which I clearly don't. It did feel a little bit long to me. I was never bored. It just felt like you could have shaved a few minutes here and there. I did feel like it also had a little bit Return of the King syndrome. Like it kind of had 3 or 4 endings.
Yeah.
And then it went to credits, and then there was like a mid-credit scene. And
was there?
Yeah, when she's like zooming with her mom.
I don't know if I saw that. Oh yeah, I might have to check out.
Well,
that out again. Yeah.
That was another thing too, is like there were kind of, and I know like some people like to say there's, this agenda in Hollywood about inclusion or LGBTQ, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, right.
There, and that it's all super preachy, and it's in there in this movie. Like they do kind of suggest that Katie's LGBTQ. It's very, very subtle. There are just little nods throughout the movie, little sort of hints, and then in this sort of mid-credit sequence, she's zooming with her mom. And Katie's been talking about her friend Jade throughout the whole movie that she's going to meet at school, and then in this mid-credit scene, the mom's like, "So are you guys a thing? Is she coming home for Thanksgiving?" Like, I thought that was nice. It wasn't shoehorned in. It was just kind of there just to sort of enrich the character a little bit. I liked that. I don't know why I brought that up while I was talking about negatives, but because
Hollywood agenda.
No, because I was talking about all the endings.
Yeah.
The only other thing for me is the movie had a couple of plot contrivances that were just like really convenient. And like the screwdriver thing, like they all have this specific screwdriver because the father's like a super handyman. They all have this very specific type of screwdriver that's like the best one in the world. And, Katie got it for her Sweet 16 and the mom got it for like her anniversary gift or whatever. And they set it up and they use it throughout. But then in the end, they're all in this situation that can only be fixed by that particular type of screwdriver. I thought that was a little hackneyed personally. Did that bother you, or? They
kind of saved it for me because I think I would have been there with you thinking it was hackneyed if they were just like, "Oh, we just need a screwdriver," or, but the fact that it had a really silly long name, like the Ultra Phillips screwdriver number 9, blah 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 blah.
Right.
Just the ultra specificity of it did kind of make me chuckle.
Okay.
You're right. It's contrived. Don't get me wrong, but I did get a bit of a chuckle out of it. But I see your point that it is like, how do we get out of this situation? Well, they all have screwdrivers. Okay.
Yeah. Luckily, I have my trusty screwdriver.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So I guess that's the show. So big recommendation from me. I guess you would recommend it as well because you already have to other people. So yeah, so that is the show. We want to thank you guys for watching. Before we sign off, Chris, do you want to let people know where they can follow you online?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. My handle is Art of Light and Shadow. It's just a kind of daily film blog going over all the fun stuff that I watch, everything from artsy black and white foreign films to, the Mitchells versus the Machines, modern day animated Hollywood fare. It's a lot of fun.
And of course, Andris is not here today, but if you want to check out his stuff, he does movie reviews of sort of horror, sci-fi, B movies from the dawn of cinema up to the modern era. They're short, they're to the point, they're a lot of fun. You can check them out by just doing a search on YouTube for Cheap Thrills Unspeakable Terror. I highly recommend you do that. And of course, excuse me, links for all of this will be in the description box below. You're already on my YouTube channel, so I don't need to tell you where to go for that. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Courtshake. Excuse me. What else do I want to say? We want to thank you guys very much for watching. As I said, as per usual, if you wouldn't mind doing the whole YouTube thing of the liking and the subscribing and the sharing, it helps the channel grow. It helps the podcast grow. We would very much appreciate that. And of course, jump down into the comments. Tell us what you thought of the Oscars, or if you're looking forward to West Side Story, or what you thought of the Mitchells versus the Machines. Again, I read all my comments. I try to respond to everything when I possibly can, so I don't think it's going unread. We will be back next week. Hopefully Andris will be with us then. No idea what we'll be talking about, but we'll figure that out. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching, and we will see you guys next week.
Thanks everyone. See you next week.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Mass Media Hysteria.